because I've been around a long time, and I've been all through the big record companies, little record companies, and all that. I've been dropped by more record companies than I even knew existed. So it's been a very sort of interesting and informative 3 decades to see how it all works and how it's changing. And I much prefer the way it is now. You know, the technology that's around the internet and so on gives you access to the world in general. And there are ways of encouraging the world in general, just trying to come and find you and check out what you are. It's still difficult, it's never going to be an easy thing to do, but you keep control over things to a much greater degree than you were able to do before. When you run things yourself, you're not pressured into doing things, you're not bullied into doing horrendous cover versions and things which I've been made to do in the past. It's just a much more genuine kind of environment. You are doing what you want to do, things that you genuinely love doing and feel passionate about in a way that you want to do them, and you're reaching out to people in a way that you choose to reach out to them, and I much prefer it. I would never go back to being signed to a proper label again. I don't think there's a need for it, and I just simply don't like that way of dealing in the music business. I don't like the corporate vibe to it. You know, I don't like it at all. Cottage industry or independent, however you want to call it, is I think it's the way to go. And I wish more bands were aware of it and made use of it. With this desire still to get signed by big labels, which I think most people seem to think is kind of the success, but it isn't. That's not success. That's the beginning of the problems to some degree. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's certainly not necessarily a good thing either. And it can be I know a lot of people, it's been a horrible nightmare getting signed, and ruined them, and it just crushed them, demoralised them, and they never went any further with it. So I don't know, for me, cottage industry is the one.
We went through 3 record companies since we've started. And I remember it was only our 3rd show, and a very large record company had come to see us and was very interested. And I remember chatting to him after me and Jamie were chatting to him, and he said, "You either play the game or you don't." And I said,
"You won't get it."
"Can you elaborate on that?" And he said, "Well, you go off now and write me 4 hit singles that I consider 4 hit singles, not what you consider 4 hit singles, or songs you like, or songs that mean something to you." He wanted 4 throwaway songs that didn't mean anything, and at that time that was it, wasn't it? It was kind of the decision where we just thought, that's not really what we're about. And that was kind of the beginning of wanting to do everything on our own. I mean, it's really good because in terms of how mine and Jamie's relationship is in the band, Jamie's so good with his art direction and his vision with the visuals, photography, and I tend to concentrate more on the music side and the writing side, and then we both at the sort of critical stage sort of overlap, so it works really well, and we both sort of finish each other's little bits off, which is a really, really interesting way of working, and it's a way I've never worked before. I've never been able to work like that before. So in terms of us being an independent label, it's absolutely fantastic, because if we want to release a 25-minute song, then we can do it. It doesn't mean people are going to buy it, but it
means doing what you want to do.
The people who want to do it, which has always been really important to me. It's always been about having the right people doing it for the right reasons, and like Matt said, the conversation we had with numerous A&R guys at the beginning, when you're starting out as a young band, and like Gary said, you do think, right, if I'm going to be successful, I've got to get signed, I've got to get a deal, because that's how you get rich, that's how you get successful, and that's what it's all about. And I think the longer that you are in the industry, you realise and you speak to people that isn't what it's about. And as you kind of change, we've been really lucky because we've kind of realised that quite early on, I suppose, in consideration of some bands, and really did make the conscious decision that we're not going to do that, we're not going to sign that, much to the horror of
a lot of people. But we have got a very, very loyal and very hard working and very patient management company, and we've got very patient friends who are willing to help. And at our level, that's really important because it makes a difference between us. We were up until 4:30 in the morning, the night before our record launch at Rough Trade, with our friends making book sets. And we wouldn't have been able to do it without them. And it was a really cool experience. And it was fantastic to be able to do. And I think that's worth a lot more to a fan or a potential fan, rather than maybe sending it to someone at a design department who's getting paid X amount of money just to sort of roll out what he considers to be
what you should look
edgy, or what you should look like. And again, that's tying in with Stuart. Stuart was fantastic in terms of his sort of visualization of our record. It was fantastic, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything that we kind of hoped for, and that was kind of why, when we made this decision, and we kind of hark back to kind of relationships that artists have had with bands and music. It's a really important thing to us, but it had to be the right kind of person. And it wasn't about money. It was about the work and what you kind of got out of it at the end, and the fact that like Matt said, Stuart and I kind of always kind of emailing about what the next step is, and then we kind of all came together and kind of actually did this hard work for 3 days in a studio to try and and it was hard work, but that's kind of got to be worth more than kind of paying somebody to do it for you, and for the fan to know that what they're actually part. It's so difficult now when so much music is available across the internet in whatever form, which is great. It's really convenient, like coming away on tour. I've got my whole music collection on my iPod, which is brilliant. But like going back to when I started listening to music, which influenced me, it was the whole ritual of sitting down and listening to the records and going, and looking at the artwork. And there isn't that. And I think, some kids now kind of don't even know what a physical record is, and I find that quite bizarre. And when I've kind of sat down and showed them, the whole experience of it is completely different, and they get it in a different way, and that's not something to be missed out on, I don't think.
If I'm not a lodger, then I'm a mosquito. Cosign for the rapture.
I think there's no secret that the music industry is in a lot of trouble, and sales are falling down, and people are just drifting off and finding other things to get involved in. And so it's the desire really to try to make the whole sort of fan and band experience more connected, and to involve them more in what you're doing, and contributing to some degree in what you're doing. So we started a while back with remix competitions, sending stems out for people to remix, which I know other people have done, and that seems to be very popular. So it's kind of an extension of that, really. And it's a kind of win-win situation, in that the people that get their films shown have got something out of it, they've got something to put on their CV or whatever, if that's what they want to do in the future. For me, I get some very creative films made that I can run up behind the show, and it just seemed to help in kind of bonding you together with your fans of the film. Even though only a relatively small percentage of the fans actually get involved in any of these things and do it, nonetheless it seems to create a feeling of a closer feeling amongst everybody, and I think that's very important. As audiences are dwindling, I think you need to look after your fans even more and make them feel important and special. And to do that, if you can involve them in actually in the creative process to a degree, then I think that's all for the better.
I'm riding the hotline. Where is my libido? I'll never make the first scene, I'll never get to heaven. I'm lucky in love, I'll never get a...
I'm immigrating actually, so that's a big part of my future. I'm moving to America. There's a new album being finished up at the moment, which I hope to get done before I go. Then there's festival season coming up, which we're very busy with. And then we have probably going to do another British tour at the end of the year, and then we start a big world tour into next year. So that's me.
Me and Matt actually were talking about this morning. We've kind of already started writing the next album, so we're kind of working on that at the moment. We've got some European dates, festival dates coming up after we finish the tour. And then what else have we got coming up? We've got a European release of the album as well.
We're working on the European release of our record, so I imagine that's going to involve quite a lot of touring. But like Jamie was saying, we need to get the second record pretty much finished, so we're in a position before we go on tour. So we've got that ready, and so we're in a really strong position, because obviously we're doing it independently. We need to be sort of super organised.
Things take a lot longer, don't they?
Yeah,
so we do get that
I think
control.
we're about eight songs in to the next record, and there's some older songs that I've been remixing and playing around with a little bit, so that's good. So I mean, that sounds like quite a busy couple of months.